What is up, Montana sports fans? You've just stepped into Wide Left Sports, where the stories are real, the passion is loud, and the athletes come first. This isn't just another sports show. This is Montana. Small towns, big dreams, long nights, early mornings, and people who flat out love the game. From Friday night lights to summer ball under the sun, from gym floors to turf fields. If it matters here, we're talking about it. Today's episode is another chance to give Montana athletes the mic and let them tell their story the right way. So settle in, turn it up, and get ready, because this is Wide Left Sports. But first, here's a word from our sponsors. Wide Left Sports is proudly sponsored by TDS Fiber, bringing fast, reliable internet to Billings and beyond. Whether you're streaming the big game, uploading content, or just trying to keep the whole house connected, TDS Fiber delivers the speed you need without the lag. Check availability in your neighborhood and make the switch today. TDS Fiber, internet built for real life. Hello, welcome to Wide Left Sports. Today I am joined by the January Beast of the Month and Billings Central basketball player Darcy Merchant. Darcy, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good.
Awesome. So my first question for a lot of the athletes that we have on is what kind of made you fall in love with basketball?
Well, from a young age, my dad's a huge basketball guy. He's played basketball his whole life. He introduced it to me when I was about 3 or 4. You know, at the about the youngest age you can be able to do it at the Y, and I guess I've just been playing much as I can ever since then. For the last 10 to 15 years, and I still love it just as much as I did then, and I still do now. And I think just being introduced to it at a young age really helped me a lot. And yeah, I still just love the game.
I love that. So obviously, right away at 4 years old, you're just learning the game and just learning how to play. So when did you know that this was going to be your sport that you were going to stick with all the way through high school?
Well, so I played 3 sports when I was in 8th grade. I started football when I was like in 4th grade. Played it till 8th. I did track and field, some cross country. I ran. I did a lot of other stuff up until middle school and 8th grade. I did football, basketball, and track. And then as I started doing AAU, that's the summer tournaments for basketball. After my 8th grade year ended, I decided that I didn't want to chance it, get myself hurt playing football, or and then I couldn't do track because AAU's in the spring. So I just thought, doing basketball all throughout high school, just basketball would benefit me, and I think it has to an extent, and I haven't gotten tired of it. I still love it just as much as I did.
I love that. So, you mentioned your dad being one of the biggest influences in getting you started in basketball, but who has been, some of your biggest influences throughout your basketball career so far?
Who's been my biggest influence? Probably just being Native American, playing basketball. Not many people. I've gotten a lot of good opportunities that a lot of kids, a lot of Native Americans don't. Getting to travel, the U.S., going to Atlanta, Chicago, California, um, Ohio, all sorts of places, getting the opportunity representing is kind of probably the biggest influence on me. Um, knowing that the opportunities I have aren't, available to many of my people. And I think that's probably been, one of the bigger influences, just um, making sure, I know the opportunities and good opportunities I have in playing basketball and doing everything that I have so far.
I love that. So let's talk about, the Native American ties to Central, because three of your guys' key players have Native American um, descendants, if that's the correct term. I'm sorry if it's not. But with you, Toby, and William. So,
Oh,
what
you're
does it
good.
mean to have so many, Native American ties to your team in high school, and to have that really be at the forefront of the culture of the team?
It means a lot. I love having my guys. We can all relate. A lot of us Native Americans, we don't get the same opportunities. So I think being able to represent at Central and carry that legacy and carry our image, and succeeding and being such a great team. Everyone, a lot of people watch us, and we're sought out. So I think just representing and keeping that image and knowing where knowing where you came from uh, is really important to us.
I love that. So then, talk to me. You mentioned that you did AAU all the way through high school, and I'm sure that's kind of a little bit difficult being in Montana here and it being a little bit of an isolated state. So, what did that look like for you, as you were going through high school and doing those tournaments?
Oh yeah, I had to go. I didn't do any of the AAU programs here. I had to go through Idaho, and I played with Idaho Premier, and they're on the UA Rise circuit. It's Under Armour circuit, and I think that's the best bet is if you want to go big, you want to achieve some of those dreams. You can't. It's not going to happen here in Montana, unfortunately. It can, but it's very chance is very very small. So I had to venture out, go to Idaho Premier, and thankfully to some of my coaches and connections, Coach Marcel and Coach Hunter, I've been able to achieve some of those dreams so far, playing at a really high level, and thanks to them.
That's awesome. So, you mentioned some of the places that you were able to go, like Chicago and places like that. Where has been your favorite place that basketball has taken you so far?
My favorite place the basketball is probably taking me is probably Atlanta. Getting to venture out, that far. Um, Playing, dudes from the Southwest, or not the Southwest. Just the South down there. Teams from Florida, North Carolina, um, Alabama, all those places. Has really, taught me a lot, and just how vast the basketball scene is, and how good dudes are, and how what it takes to be great. And I really learned a lot from getting to play tournaments down there. Um, and you just really learn a lot from watching so many different guys at different levels, and um, yeah.
I love that. So, when you're in all these different areas, can you tell that there's different styles of basketball for, say, like Chicago, or like you were mentioning down in Atlanta, or like up here? Are there different types of basketball that are played in the different areas?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, there's players that can do really well in AAU against um, bigger, stronger, faster competition, and can't succeed versus Montana kids in team defenses and um, stuff like that. It's really a lot different basketball played. I play a completely different game that I do in AAU than I do in high school. Um, the pace is a lot faster, a lot bigger, stronger kids. So you kind of take that into account, and then you come back to Montana and there's zone defenses and strong. There's still strong, fast kids, just not as many of them. But sometimes it's harder to score on Montana high school defense than it is to score in AAU defense. Um, so they go hand in hand. It's really it's a big transition. It's way different. Um, but it's you learn a lot from playing in both the scenes.
I love that. So, then how did playing in those AAU tournaments help you when you got back here and were playing for Central?
Well, they help me because I when you play against guys like you do in the down south and around the country, it's a lot slower game here, and so you're kind of able just to take a step back almost and um, analyze things at a little bit more comfortable rate, and it's there's just a lot of different things. I don't I mean I think just as a player it makes you a lot smarter because you could just see different types of basketball and different types of players, and then you come back here, you can apply that to um, playing high school teams, that get one team together and get to practice all, for 4 or 5 months. You don't get that in AAU. Teams are kind of just thrown together and you go out there and play. Um, so yeah.
For sure, for sure. So this year you hit a milestone that not a lot of people get to hit in the 1,000 point club um, for basketball there at Central. So, walk me through the moment when you hit that 1,000th point. Was it something you knew you were close to, or did it just kind of happen?
Yeah, I mean, I always had some thought into it. I knew I was gonna get it early in my senior year. I wanted to get it my junior year, but I got hurt last year and I had to sit out 4 or 5 games, and I was on pace to get it by divisionals or state last year easily. Um, but I was hurt, so unfortunately, it was gonna happen at the beginning of my senior year, and I didn't really think about it until I think let's see the night before the few nights before it just like randomly just like I just kind of thought of it when I was at my house, and my coach knew about it though, so he had things all set up already. And then when I was thinking about it, I told my parents, and then they got some stuff for me, and I knew I was gonna hit it. First Lewistown, I needed like 20, 22 points, and it kind of sucked because I had to I wanted to get it that game, and I kind of had like there was a couple of times where my teammates were like open, but I just had to get that bucket. I easily could have got the 22 points if I wanted to, and I did. But of course that's thanks to my teammates for letting me do that. Because without them I wouldn't be where I am. So I think let alone me feeling that that 1,000 point night, it's really thanks to my teammates and my coaches for letting that happen.
I love that. And so, is the exact bucket you got to reach that 1,000? Is that something you're going to remember for a long time?
Yeah, I probably will. Just because I saw the video a couple of times, the dude was trying to like take a charge, and I just kind of folded it up on the backboard, and I just went in for my 22nd point, and then coach called timeout, subbed me out, and it was already like a 30-point blowout at that point, and I should have been out like a quarter ago. Like I was still in there mid fourth, so yeah, I thank my coaches for allowing me to play.
I love that. So then when you look at the number, and it's obviously growing because you guys are mid-season still, what does it mean to you just beyond the point total?
Well, yeah, I mean, like I said before, like it's definitely a feat. How many players get to get. Especially at the higher level classes, Class A, Class AA. Um, it's never easy to get 1,000. But it's especially in a sought out program like Central Basketball. Jim Segar has built an amazing program, and he allowed me to play as a freshman, start as a sophomore, and up through there. So without him, believing in me as a little freshman, 3 years ago, I wouldn't be able to be where I am now because it's a lot different. It's pretty tough playing against bigger competition, in the Class A, Class AA scene. So I thank him, and it was definitely a road to a long road to 1,000, but I got it, thanks to him and of course the players.
That's awesome. And so then, mentioning the other players too, your teammate Toby Stewart got 1,000 right around the same time you did. And so, how cool is that to have a
Yep.
teammate reach the same feat you did in the same year?
Oh, I loved it. Like, I mean, I think it's good, to have that, on our team, like, we have used to have a bunch of hoopers on our team, and Toby's 100% one of them, so I knew he was going to get it at some point. I didn't know when, but like seeing him get it, is just like, cause I've been playing with him since I was like first, second, third grade, basically my whole life. Um, so seeing like, I know him inside and out, like I know how he plays, like I know what he's thinking, I know where he's at, at all times, like, and I have for, all the years we played together. So seeing him hit that, right after me is just like, it means everything, cause I've seen him at his worst, seen him at his best, I seen him when he was 5 feet tall, and, so I've seen him grow, and seeing him grow and, hit that milestone, it means a lot.
That's awesome. So let's go back and talk about that younger Darcy that was just learning basketball. If he could see that moment, what is he saying to you now?
Well, he's probably pretty proud, but he probably, doesn't know what it took to get to that moment. He's probably not surprised. He's probably just expecting himself to see it there, but knowing all the hard work he put in and, getting the opportunity to play for, on varsity as many years as he did and get the time, and, he's probably not thinking about how much he should appreciate his teammates and coaches for letting him, get to that milestone. But he's probably, definitely proud.
I love that. I love that. So now let's talk about the leadership that you have to have as a senior on any team, and just in general with you having been on varsity for as long as you have, and being a scorer, the defenses tend to key on you. So how have you learned to handle that pressure and defensive attention all throughout the game?
Yeah, I mean, in the box, in like the, our stat sheets, it says that I'm the leading scorer, and that it's true, to an extent, but when teams prepare for someone like me, they often prepare pretty heavily. So when you're getting face guarded, getting face checked, when dudes are assigned to guard you and that's their only job, and they might average 2 points a game, but their job is to stop me. It's really nice when I can just give the ball up and I can have Gunner get to the rim or Howie get to the rim. Toby's, kick out three, like I have so many options. Like these guys are, they're great. They're great teammates. They allow, um, without them, we wouldn't be as successful as we are so far. And, any one of them can go out for 20 points a night, but, um, they trust me, to be that guy. And, when times call for it, they step up and they produce well, and, I think that's one thing I've been blessed with, this year and last year too, that I wasn't, my sophomore year or, even freshman year sometimes. So it's been great. I give a lot of props to my teammates, for, just being there when for times that I can't.
I love that. So then, how has your role on the team evolved when it comes to leadership at Central? From like you were saying, the freshman to now a senior.
A lot, there's a lot of knowledge, I really know the, ins and outs of, what it takes, to be a successful team, at Central. And, I saw a lot of it. I had great leadership. My freshman year, there was a couple seniors and a junior that, really helped me out a lot. And, even into my sophomore year. There's just there's good role models, all throughout Central. Just there's just good kids, everywhere you go. And as you go, through your junior, your senior year, you have to know that you take that step. And there's a lot of things. I always just look back at what I appreciated as a freshman and sophomore, um, and I really apply that to the younger kids. Um, since I'm a junior, senior now, younger kids, as I was to their age. And I think just knowing what's important and knowing what isn't, and when to speak up and when not to, is really important. And I've learned a lot from you know taking a seat and to leading the ship.
I love that. So when you talk about leadership of a team, there's usually two types. There's either the vocal type that will kind of get in the other player's face and be vocal about it, or they'll lead more by example. And so, for you, what is your leadership
Mm.
role like on that team?
So as far as being a vocal one or a one that leads by example, I think the best leaders can do both at the same time. Um, if I'm going to get on someone for, not sliding their feet or not sprinting back on defense or swinging that extra pass or, um, I'm open on kick out, I'm going to do those same things, and I think if I'm going to tell them, I'm going to also do it. And I think without one or the other, you can't be the best leader you can be.
Yeah, I love that.
So I think, yeah.
I love that. So, obviously, being 1,000 point scorer, you don't have many rough nights shooting. But if you do have a rough night shooting, how do you reset? After either a rough shooting night or a tough loss.
So I think you just gotta take, what's good about your game and really study what's bad about it. And I think what I've learned is that scoring necessarily isn't everything. Of course, I think everyone should know that. You really got to find other ways to impact the game when your shot's not on, or your layups aren't really falling. I think when you know that's happening, you have to find other places to impact the game, whether it's rebounding, passing it, or you know getting offensive rebounds, locking your guy down. I think there's so many different aspects of the game that you have to focus on than just scoring. So if your shots don't fall that night, I think if you look back on it and think, I had a bad game, um, we lost. I think as long as there's so many other ways to impact the game, that you have to look at that and know that's, um, oh, well, I did good in that area, just not in this area, and I think as long as you know that, then I think you're going to be really successful.
I love that. And so my next question is, you know, obviously all sports teach you lessons outside of the, basketball court or field or whatever your sport is. And so what is the biggest lesson basketball has taught you off the court that you're going to carry with you throughout your whole life?
Probably just being a great teammate, being a great person, at Central, Sturgar really teaches us more than just playing the game, being a good person, doing this, doing that, like I've learned more being a good person from him than I have most, a lot of other coaches that I've had, in my life. And I think it's definitely more to the game than just, putting that ball through the hoop. It's how you treat your teammates, what you say, how you act, when you're off the court, on the bench, subbing out. There's a lot more to it, that says a lot about your character. Than just, like I said, just putting the ball through the hoop. I could watch a game. I could watch a game and watch any player and know, you can take a lot by watching play a game and applying it to, like their actual life, and it really says a lot about that person and, and how they are once, the game gets going and things get tough and, um, who's there for you as a good teammate when things aren't going well for you.
I love that. So my next question is, what makes Billings Central basketball so special compared to other places around the state that you've gotten the chance to play?
Well, we're lucky with having kids that are always just good kids, they're raised through good families. Um, they come, they come from something, that isn't really taught, they're rooted in faith. So I think when you get at Central, when you have kids that don't have any issues and they basically they just do, what the coach says, because, they're just good, they're good people, it's easy to um, get a team to do what you want to do as a coach. And I think Jim Sturgard knows that. And he really takes advantage of that. And he gives us a lot of things to know throughout the game, different defenses, different presses, different plays. He can give us a task, um, and we will do it, most of the time, more than any other team. And I think he's been blessed with that um, the last, since he's been coaching since I think 2013, and he's been really successful. He's won 2 state championships. He's gone to like 75% of the state title games in the last 10, 15 years. He's been great, and um he's able to tell any of his teams now, the last 4 years, last 10, um what he needs for them to get done, because he knows what needs to be done for you to be successful, and um they've done just that.
That's so awesome. So then, how much does it fuel you to get to play in front of your friends, family, and that whole Billings Central community? Whether it be in Central's gym, excuse me, or I know you guys play some games at the Metro, or just on the road with how Billings Central travels.
Yeah, I think representing means a lot, as far as like sports, and a lot of people don't like Central at all. I didn't really know that until I got here, and there's not a lot of people that like Central, and but there also is, and people really pay attention to how you are in stores or in gas stations or on the road. I think carrying yourself, and when you're wearing that Central logo, you really gotta you know just be the person you are, and at Central, the person you are is just a good person, and I think everyone knows that. Everyone, just gotta have respect, and towards everyone and anybody, outside of school, because people pay attention, and our they tell us that all the time at school. Just be a good person outside of school. Just as you are here, and I think that really is most important when you're at Central and you're representing Central.
I love that. So now let's move on to the Beast of the Month, which you won through Wide Left Sports. So what was your thought when you first found out that you won, and what does it mean to you to, I guess, kind of win this Beast of the Month from us?
It's great. I love it. Really, I love when people recognize the hard work you put in, and your success. And your success is recognized. It always feels great. Regardless of what it is. So, and it being the first award, I think it's real. I think you guys got to have a good candidate for it being the first one, and yeah, definitely. What you got going here on is really, really good. For athletes and all across the state. So um, it really is a good recognition of my hard work and appreciation for you.
Awesome. And then, how I got your name for the nomination was Coach Stewart, because I've known him from his days back in Lodgegrass. And so, how much does it mean to you that he thought of you to nominate for this?
Oh, I mean, he knows. he's been watching me since I was very young, like super, young. He's known my dad for years, and he knows what I'm capable of. He knows my game inside and out. He knows what I can do. So he's also a recognition of what um my hard work and determination. I'm not surprised that he would nominate me for this, just because I trust him and he knows everything that I'm capable of, and especially what I've done the month of January as far as well.
I love that. Well, Darcy, I want to thank you so much, and congrats on being our Beast of the Month, and continued success at Central for the rest of the year.
Sir, thank you so much.
Have a good rest of your Sunday.
Sir, you too.
All right, that's going to do it for this episode of Wide Left Sports. If you liked what you heard, hit that subscribe button, share it with a friend, and keep spreading the word, because this platform grows when Montana sports fans show up for other Montana athletes. These stories matter, the work matters, and the passion around sports in this state is something truly special. Huge thank you to our sponsors for helping us make this possible, and thank you for listening, supporting, and riding with us. We've got more conversations coming, more athletes to highlight, and more Montana stories to tell. Until next time, keep supporting local sports, keep cheering loud, and keep it right here with Wide Left Sports.